Hey everyone, thanks for listening in on this week's very brief episode. The reason I wanted to do this, we have the New England IRS Representation Conference coming up very shortly. All of the IRS executive interviews we will be dropping as podcast episodes the week after Thanksgiving, so you can hear directly from them. What I wanted to cover, though, is a question that comes up a lot, and it comes up in different ways. So the question often comes up like this. You go through the offer analysis, the taxpayer has some equity in the house or they have a car, and the first thing the client will say to you is, they expect me to sell my house, they expect me to get rid of my car. And in saying that, what they're showing, and by the way, and then I get it from the practitioners. CPA says they expect my client to sell their house, they expect my client to move. What that shows is that these people fundamentally don't understand what an offer in compromise is. So let's talk about, what is an offer in compromise? An offer in compromise is the calculation done by the government for what they are willing to settle the debt for. Okay, so for instance, let's say there's 5,000 of equity they've determined is available in the house, using the RCP and all the normal, the offer rules. 5,000 in the house, and let's say 2,000 in the vehicles, and future income is another 2,000. So they calculate 9,000. The government will settle the debt for the 9,000. They're not going to make you do anything. You don't have to sell your house. You don't have to get a different car. You don't have to change your lifestyle. This is the number that they've calculated, right? You can go borrow it from mom and dad, or go to a loan shark or a bank, wherever you want. They don't care. That's the amount that it's going to take to settle. Okay. And that's why there's a real big difference between being uncollectible and an offer in compromise. Because if you're uncollectible, you can be uncollectible and have equity and assets. You just can't tap it, right? You just can't access it. You go to the bank, they decline you for the loan. You try to refinance the car or the house, they decline you. You can be deemed uncollectible when it, right? Because you can't tap it, you can't tap it. When it comes to an offer, your ability to tap the equity or not is immaterial. You wanted to know, it's like, imagine you going to a creditor and saying, look, I owe you 300,000. Here's my financial, what would you settle for? They're going to do a calculation. And let's say they come up with, again, $9,000. We'll settle for 9,000. And you started, well, you expect my client to sell us, what the creditor say, oh, well, enough, shut up. You know what? We don't care where they get the 9,000. We don't. You wanted a number, that's the number we're prepared to settle for. If you can't do the number, you can't do the offer. There is no God-given right to an offer in compromise. So I wanted to just, if you're listening, dispel any confusion you might have about what an offer in compromise is. An offer in compromise is exactly what it says. We are making an offer to the government to compromise the debt. They're going to do their calculation called reasonable collection potential. All right. Now, if you're a tax rep member, you got the books, you should know how to calculate that. That's what we teach you. The IRS should be pretty on point to where you are. If they're not, probably they're wrong. That's why you go to appeals. But you go to the government, we want to compromise. The government gives you their calculation. They're not going to make the client move, sell the house, refi, borrow money. That they're not going to make the client do anything. Collection might do that later on, but they're not going to do that. You ask for a number, here's the number. If you can't pay the number, you can't do the offer. There is no God-given right to an offer in compromise. Get into uncollectible, get into a payment plan, installment agreement, do something else, right? If it's old enough and it's income tax, maybe you can go bankrupt depending which circuit you're in. But if you want an offer in compromise, this is the number the government wants, right? So in your practice, when you have the client and you do the RCP calculation the way we've taught you to, and you say, okay, the number is X, and the client starts to jump up and down, well, I'm going to have to, what you need to explain to them is this is what the calculation is. This is what the government is going to want. They don't care where you get it from. That's the number. Now, again, are there exceptions? Sure, effective tax administration offers, and doubt is the collectability with special circumstances, which is a whole different topic unto itself altogether. But there are times where you can argue that the RCP calculation really the government should basically not follow those rules and depart from them in favor of some other calculation that you can justify. But 99.999% of offers are based on the RCP. And the RCP is going to give them a number. That's what they're going to want. So what I want you to take away from this is, what is an offer in compromise? An offer in compromise is the number the IRS has calculated that they are prepared to take to settle the debt. Your client doesn't have to agree. Your client doesn't have to do anything special. But if you want to settle it for less, that's the number they've calculated. All right. Now, with that, go forth to get your offers in compromise done. All right. Follow the rules. Do all of the strategies that we've talked about. All right. There are legitimate strategies where you can help set your client up, all right, to make it more likely that they can get an offer, or that it could even potentially offer less. All right. So you go and do all of that. But at the end of the day, the offer amount, again, that's what the government's going to settle for. So whether they have the money or not is immaterial. That's the number the government's going to want. Hopefully it's a number your client can live with and can raise. Okay. So anyway, I'll see all of you at the New England IRS Rep Conference. All right. Thanks for listening in. Talk to you next week.